Hey guys, your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be episode 188 for you guys, the final On the Hot Podcast episode of the calendar year 2024. We're going to end things off with a bang. All out football episode mixed with NFL content and college football content. So to kick off the first segment of the episode, I'll be sharing my NFL Week 17 summary for you guys. These games and following events stood out to me the most during the NFL Week 17 regular season. So I'll be covering that in this segment. So the first game that caught my eye was the incredible game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Denver Broncos. The Bengals defeated the Broncos in overtime by a score of 30-24 on Saturday. Now, it was a great back and forth game between Joe Burrow and Bo Nix. And also in the game, you had a great wide receiver and cornerback matchup of Ja'Marr Chase and Patrick Surtain out there on the outside with these wide receivers and cornerbacks dueling against each other. Joe Burrow had an incredible game, and he's having an incredible season. If the Bengals weren't so bad and they had so many losses, eight losses, I think Joe Burrow would be in the MVP conversation with the likes of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, because he leads the league in passing yards. He has 42 passing touchdowns. He's having the best offensive year of his NFL career thus far. So it's very unfortunate. And I really just hope, based off of what I've seen in the last few weeks, the emergence once again of the Cincinnati Bengals, I just hope the football gods give us what we want. Have the Cincinnati Bengals defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers Saturday night, and then give us Carson Wentz being the backup for the Kansas City Chiefs, knock off the Broncos, and the Dolphins lose to the Jets, so the Bengals could get the 7th and final spot in the AFC for the playoffs. Is that too much to ask for, to get a Josh Allen versus Joe Burrow game first round, the playoffs, and the wild card? I'm just liking everything I'm seeing from the dynamic trio of Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, and T. Higgins. I want to see them play in the playoffs because realistically, if they do get the help that they need and they win Saturday against the Steelers, that could be the last time that we see the trio of Burrow, Chase, and Higgins all in the same field together, because we could be entering free agency in the spring where T. Higgins goes to a different team. So I would definitely like to see them in the playoffs based on what I've seen. And speaking of the MVP race, I have my updated MVP race for the final week of Week 18. So these three are in the final. We're in the final stage of the MVP race. I do believe these following players are top three in the MVP race. So first, I have Lamar Jackson. I think he's number one in the MVP race. Second would be Josh Allen. Third would be Saquon Barkley. If it wasn't, I'm just going to say it, if it wasn't for the years that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen were having, and if it wasn't a quarterback MVP award nowadays, I think Saquon Barkley would win the MVP. But Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are just having tremendous seasons. So I just believe that Lamar Jackson is going to win his third MVP. I think the race is over. He has more passing yards than Josh Allen, more passing touchdowns than Josh Allen, fewer interceptions. The only thing that separates Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen is in the win-loss category, with the Bills only having 3 losses, the Ravens having 5 losses. So if you take that away, the win-loss record, I think Lamar Jackson should win this award. Plus, he has time to pad his stats, with the Ravens having something to play for Week 18 against the Browns. If they win the AFC North. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills have nothing to play for, already locked up the AFC East weeks ago, and already are the second seed in the AFC for the playoffs. So Josh Allen's not going to play, but I think Lamar Jackson has done everything he could to win back-to-back MVPs, and I think he's closing on his third MVP award. I was in favor of Josh Allen for the last several weeks, but Lamar Jackson has turned it up a notch, and I think he's closed in, and he's going to pull away with the stats he's going to put on the Browns Week 18 to win his third MVP award. Now, my thoughts on Saquon Barkley's season. Thoughts on Saquon Barkley rushing for over 2,000 yards this NFL season. Saquon Barkley has been incredible. He was the Giants' loss, but the Eagles' gain. And that's crazy to say, that an NFC East opponent, NFC rival, I should say, picked up Saquon Barkley in free agency. Didn't have to give up any draft picks to get one of the best running backs in the National Football League. And Saquon Barkley has been the missing gem that this Philadelphia Eagles team needs. I mean, they're good offensively and defensively, but Saquon Barkley is he's the train and he's the car that travels through and gets the Eagles to where they need to be. I mean, he's got the burst of the speed, the quickness, and the vision. He's an explosive playmaker with the ball in his hands. I mean, it's risky, but I would let Saquon Barkley break the record. Go ahead and break the Eric Dickerson's all-time rushing record in the regular season against the New York Giants. I'm serious. I even know it's a risk because the Eagles have already won this division, the NFC East division. They've already locked up a playoff spot. They're going to have the third seed at best. Why not let Saquon just go out there against his former team in the New York Giants? You're going to have the Philly crowd behind him. He only needs 101 rushing yards. It's very dangerous, but I would go ahead and make the call to let Saquon Barkley do something that possibly might not be in his reach ever again in his NFL career. Not saying he's going to get hurt or anything, but Eric Dickerson has had this record for a very long time. Hell, even Adrian Peterson, his MVP year in 2012, 2013, he could not even break this rushing record. I will let Saquon go for the record. 101 rushing yards is needed. Pull him out of the game right afterwards. You're not really playing to win anyway against the Giants that have nothing to play for. Well, they do have something to play for, their pride. Which gets me to the next segment, or next part of this segment, thoughts on the NFL draft order. It's crazy to think that the New York Giants have blown their chances of having the first overall pick following their victory against the Indianapolis Colts. I believe when they put up over 40 points against the Colts, that was the first time they did that since 2019, since Daniel Jones has been a part of the roster. So this team is desperately in need of a quarterback, and you go out there and just put up 40-plus points against the Colts in winning fashion. Now, it'll be interesting to see what the Giants, or who ends up with the first overall pick with Week 18 coming this week, because right now the Giants just fumbled it. The New England Patriots hold the first overall pick in the draft. If the draft order were to start today, the Giants, the Titans, the Browns, and the Patriots are the only teams that can clinch the first overall pick after Week 18. So all these teams could really use a quarterback other than the New England Patriots, who just drafted Drake May. I think if the Patriots end up with the first overall pick, they would just have to lose to the Buffalo Bills as backups. But if they get the first overall pick, can you imagine if they selected Travis Hunter? I think if they have the first overall pick, you do not trade back. You don't get the trade assets. You go get the best player available for you. And that's Travis Hunter. Can you imagine Travis Hunter being on the other side of the field with their young cornerback and Christian Gonzalez, who has been a remarkable player, a player that the New England Patriots will build their roster around for years and years to come? Can you imagine those two playing cornerback out there for the New England Patriots, and you build a defense around those two? Why trade out of the first overall pick? So, hey, any of these teams could really use the first overall pick. The Giants, the Titans, the Browns could really get a quarterback to help them and their rebuild. Meanwhile, the Patriots could use this boost to get a player like Travis Hunter for their sake of the future. So anybody is going to be lucky to have the first overall pick in this draft. Now, on to the Green Bay Packers. Have the Green Bay Packers been exposed as pretenders? Now, I believe they are pretenders because I've been saying over the last several weeks that this Packers team, even though they're 11-5, they go into the playoffs, they have been outplayed and outclassed on both sides of the ball by playoff caliber teams all year long. They've been swept by two contending teams that you might have to see in the playoffs, depending on what happens or the seeding down the line. And that being the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions. You've been swept by both of them this year. You come up short. They're 2-5 against teams that have winning records. Their wins against winning teams, that would be the Houston Texans, have been a misconception of what they were last year. And a Seahawks team that Geno Smith got hurt in the first half, and you didn't have to play him, so you played Sam Howell. So, yeah, they had a good playoff run the last year. You guys see the poster that beat my Dallas Cowboys. But you're not gonna play a team that is allergic to prosperity every year in the playoffs like the Dallas Cowboys are. They're set to self-destruct in the playoffs. This year around, there's really no room for error of teams that will make mistakes like the Cowboys did last year. So I'm just saying this team is the youngest age range. This team is the youngest team in the National Football League. I don't think they're ready to put it all together just yet, which makes me believe they are pretenders heading into the playoffs. Now, last but not least, the Commanders versus Falcons game was a treat. I mean, that Sunday night game, you had the Commanders defeat the Falcons by a score of 30-24 in overtime. Now, in my opinion, this was the best game of Week 17. The Sunday night matchup between two rookie quarterbacks of Michael Penix Jr. and Jaden Daniels. Both of them did not look like rookies on the field Sunday night. Both of them looked like players that had matured and been in the league for quite some time. Those two, I hope, we see more battles between Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. in the future, because they both could be the future of their respective franchises. But Jaden Daniels, I got to say, this man put the Commanders on his back for them to clinch a playoff spot. Had 227 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and also did it with his legs as well. 16 carries for 127 rushing yards. Had a game-winning drive. How that game-winning drive was all Jaden Daniels running the football down the Falcons' throat to get them down the field and into the red zone for them to cash in. And Jaden Daniels had one of the best games of his rookie career, with his number one wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, only having 1 catch in the entire ball game. A.J. Terrell did a good job covering him throughout the ball game. But the Commanders have locked up a playoff spot. 11-5, their best start since the 1990s. I got to say, as a Dallas Cowboys fan, I am a little jealous of what they're doing. And I'm a little jealous of how quickly Jaden Daniels and our former defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, have quickly turned around the franchise for the better for their sake. And their first year, they're going to attract free agents to want to come there. They're going to attract players that want to be drafted to the Commanders. Players want to be traded there. This is everything that you want in a Commanders fan. Bright days and a bright future ahead from what I've seen this year. For the playoff seedings, this gets a little tricky, even though the Commanders are in and there's only one spot to be crowned in the NFC, that being between the Bucs and the Falcons. I'll get to that in a few moments. But if the Commanders win against the Cowboys on Sunday and the Packers lose against the Panthers, then the Commanders would get the 6th seed. If both teams, Commanders and the Packers, lose, things stay the same. So we could see a scenario with both teams play their starters, play to win, Packers beating the Bears, Commanders trying to beat the Cowboys, to avoid playing the Philadelphia Eagles in the first round, because the Eagles are going to have the 3rd seed. The 3rd seed. No, actually, they'll have the 2nd seed. What am I talking about? They'll have the 2nd seed. So seeding-wise, they could be a factor of who you want to play. Actually, you really want to avoid the 7th spot now you think about it, with the Eagles having the 2nd seed. So definitely something to look out for. As a Falcons fan, though, I would be happy from what I've seen from Michael Penix Jr. He looked a little shaky against the Giants in his first NFL career start, but that performance against the Commanders in hostile territory on a Sunday night primetime game, that's what Michael Penix Jr. was all about heading into the draft. He showed that in his final year in college with the Washington Huskies when he got them all the way to the national championship. This is the guy that you want. But for Falcons fans, it might be too little too late to win the NFC South, because when you've seen Kirk Cousins struggling, the Falcons should have pulled the cord and put Michael Penix in a long time ago, because once upon a time they were 6-3. They fumbled their control and their destiny of winning this division, even though they swept the Bucs this NFL season. And now all the Bucs need to do is beat the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. They clinch the division. They clinch the final playoff spot that can be provided in the NFC. So Falcons, it looks like they're going to miss the playoffs. But they do have something to ride on and something to be happy about heading into next season from what I've seen from Michael Penix Jr. in his first 2 starts. But that is my NFL Week 17 summary from the NFL Week 17 regular season.